Hi guys, and welcome to the first ever episode of Team Talk. Woo! I would have inserted a fake cheer, but I haven't started lesson 2 for Windows Movie Maker yet. I'm joined today by Sam,
Hi guys, thank you for having me.
and today we're going to discuss which teams we think will make the Champions League spots in the Premier League this season. So let's get into it. First of all, thank God for this season, as we have technically over 10 teams who could potentially end up in the top 4. We will go into detail on the main contenders and have a brief discussion on the long shot candidates. So, Sam, starting with the top, let's hear about Manchester United.
Where to start? If you think about Manchester United, the main person you've got to think about at the moment is Bruno Fernandes. To me, Bruno Fernandes, I think, is getting a bit too much hype for what he is. Obviously, you can say the impact of what he's had is you can't think of any other player that's done a bigger impact to a club in God knows how many years. At the moment, he's on 11 goals and 7 assists in just this season. If you put him across the top 6, he's actually only got 1 goal, 0 assists in 6 games.
Yeah, so in those
So,
clutch games, he's not really showing it, is he?
yeah. But then you think about you've got other big players like Paul Pogba, Harry Maguire, Eric Bailly's now back fully fit and he's playing well. Luke Shaw's now got a bit of a competition with Alex Telles and he's starting to play well. So you can see why they're definitely up there. But for me, are they going to win the league? Personally, I think they're 1 to 2 players off from actually winning the title.
Yeah, no, I think I can agree with you on there. I think maybe if we were really going into depth from winning the title, I think, like you said, especially it seems like their sort of form's a bit unsustainable. That maybe they get a bit lucky in certain games. So I think in terms of winning the title, I'd definitely say, like you said, maybe they're a few players short. But in terms of going for the top 4, they're putting a pretty good run together at the moment. Sort of based on sort of what you've looked into and what you've watched of them this season, sort of potentially for now, out of 10, what sort of score out of 10 would you rate their chances of getting into the top 4?
Out of 10, I'd probably say a solid 9. I think with the actual squad they've got a lot of depth as well. So I think definitely they'll get top 4, and especially their away form. I think it's like 15 games unbeaten, and if they can put that into their home form, right, there's no reason why they couldn't get top 4. I definitely think they can get top 4 this season. I don't think they'll win the league. Like I said, I think they're 1 to 2 players off. Definitely missing that clinical striker. I think Martial is not that person to be. Cavani, is he too old? Maybe bringing someone in January could help, but
I don't think they'll
I
do
don't
that.
think. No, I don't think they'll do that either. I think potentially they'll wait till summer
Yeah,
if they do.
I think, like I said, there's always a chance it could all go wrong. But at the moment, like you said, I think I'll agree. I'll agree with your 9. I definitely wouldn't put it at 10, but I think it'd be harsh to go any lower than sort of 8 or 9.
Yeah.
I mean, going down the table, sort of the next sort of main contender is looking like Manchester City. So again, do you have anything on them just to say? I mean, if I sort of start off with just a little briefing, I mean, I think at the start of the season, I was a bit worried for them that maybe somehow it'd gone wrong again, but there's sort of recent run of form, you're almost putting them on that sort of similar sort of rating as Manchester United. Have you got anything to add to that?
I totally agree. I think since the signing of Ruben Diaz and the reform of John Stones, you can definitely put that point across that I think they're going to be right up there and either potentially win the league or definitely in the top 4. I think what they played 10 games together recently, 8 clean sheets and 2 goals conceded. People are starting to compare him to the Rio Ferdinand and Vidic partnership, but I think that's too much at the moment. I don't think there's no way you can compare them two to that partnership. But like I said, 40, I think 10 clean sheets this season so far. They're definitely looking like strong components to be in the top 4. The only thing about me is for Man City is just the front man, the number 9. That's the only thing. If they had Aguero fully fit, do you reckon they'll be certified champions? Do you think, or
I think it's definitely sort of a solid point, just because they're playing so well and they're almost filling people in. Like, I mean, Jesus has played sort of maybe 50% of the games. I don't even know if Aguero's even played at all, off the top of my head. I mean, I know recently De Bruyne's played up front, Mahrez has played up front, and obviously recently again Jesus has come back in, and it doesn't really seem like it affects them, because I think the quality of the rest of their team is so good that, and the fact that the defence isn't conceding anymore, which is an issue they had sort of last season, it just makes you think that, like you said, maybe if Aguero does come back to fitness, then this it's sort of curtains for everyone else.
100%? I think the money they've spent on their defence. I think I saw saying it was a stat of 450 million since Pep's been there that he spent on his defence. So it's a lot of money, but it's definitely strengthened. Obviously, you've got Cancelo who's playing well. Zinchenko's even starting to look a pretty decent fullback, but definitely that partnership is doing well. Jesus, I think, is a bit overrated. I don't think he's the striker for Man City. I think they definitely need to invest in summer if they want to potentially get to that Champions League. They're dying to get. That's what Pep's dying to get, I think, as well. He's wanting to get that Champions League with three. Is it three or three different clubs? I think no other manager's done that, so I think that's what he's aiming to do. And
Yeah,
that's what
I
he wants to
agree.
do at City, I think.
I think I think it might be sort of the sort of sum. I mean, I know they're quite heavily linked to Messi, and I mean, if that happens, then that sort of that.
It's
I
unbelievable if they
mean,
do that.
yeah, I mean, I think if they did that, you'd be quite um the odds for sort of Premier League and Champions League winners would be not worth putting money on, basically. So
They'll be solid favourites.
yeah, I think in terms of the top four this season, the way they're going at the moment, they're already in quite a good position, and it only seems like it's going to get better. So I'd
Yeah,
say I'd say at the moment they're probably the strongest candidate. I mean, wouldn't say necessarily a 10 just because they're not like Liverpool far away from everyone else last season, but I'd say like another 9, maybe even like a
they definitely seem
9.5
to
if you want
be.
to push that. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
they
I
seem to
agree.
be. I think the only thing is at the moment, obviously, just seeing what's come out of the news today with Kevin De Bruyne, is that he's had that hamstring tear, so he's potentially going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. I know I think in that time it's going to be 3 to 4 games, and obviously, but the big one is Liverpool that he potentially might not be, and that could be a title deciding game. I know they've got a game in hand, and they're what is it? I think 3 points behind United or 2 points behind United.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, sorry, 2 points behind United with a game in hand. So if they win that, they definitely go top. But it's just that Liverpool game that could turn the table. Where it's so tight this season, it's going to be
yeah. Any
big,
drop
big games that had
points.
their key player. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. I think, like I said, again, like Man United, Man City, I reckon will I'd happily give them like a 9 or a 9.5 for their chances of getting the top 10. But I think moving on to the sort of this, I guess a little bit of a shock, but after sort of the early injuries to Van Dijk, the sort of next or the other team everyone probably had as favourites for the title this season, Liverpool. Sort of they're not doing necessarily badly. I'd say they're doing all right, but compared to last season, they're sort of miles off the pace they set last season, and sort of especially lately, a bit sort of in the opposite to Man City. They've looked a lot less sort of exciting, a lot less clinical, and a lot less impressive. And obviously, with the fact that they still don't seem to have any first choice centre backs or professional centre backs, they're sort of really worrying me a little bit because of the competition that all the other teams are sort of posing to them. You worry a bit slightly that if they don't start picking it up soon, they might actually fall away a little bit, which would be very surprising, but it can happen. I mean, sort of looking at some of the stats, the Liverpool's front three in their last 64 shots have only scored 1 goal, which um,
Jesus.
is quite worrying, really, considering the defence is all over the place because um, Van Dijk, Gomez, Matip, all injured, and the forwards aren't making up for that sort of deficiency anymore. I mean, um, Trent's only got 2 assists so far in 16 appearances in the Premier League, which I mean, isn't you can't really blame him for not being the reason why Liverpool aren't winning. But again, he's not on the sort of pace that he was last season, and I think Robertson's got 5, which is good for a fullback. But it's the fact that they're not at the same level of output as they were last season, and they're not at the same level of effectiveness, and that's really showing, I think, in Liverpool's play because they can't break down teams with those sort of excellent crosses from those two anymore. And they're
100%. I think.
actually carry on, go on.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say just like 100%. The thing is, with Liverpool, obviously everyone's going to compare them to last season, and it's hard to see maintain that for 2 seasons on straight. If the amount of injuries that they've had, like if you look at Van Dijk, people don't realise that long ball with his left foot causes so many issues for defenders and for like other teams' fullbacks because that just goes from one side to the pitch to the other. Like diagonal passing is a key to Liverpool's game.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I mean, carry on.
that's what they're missing.
Yeah, I think the fact that sort of last season you had crosses from the left, crosses from the right. Van Dijk could always play a ball over the top. Then you had Mane and Salah sort of either going in behind, they could take the ball and dribble past their man. There were so many different options, and it seems like this season a lot of that's gone out of Liverpool's play, which is sort of the reason why they're sort of faltering a little bit. I mean, even in the defensive aspect, you can see sort of they've actually shown quite a sort of a weakness from defending crosses. I think quite a high percentage of the goals they've conceded this season have come from crosses. I think the statistic was around sort of 30, like it was like 20%. Obviously, when Van Dijk was playing, no striker was really ever getting ahead of him to the ball. And sort of after 18 games last season, they'd only conceded 13 goals. And they'd only conceded more than one goal in a game, more than one goal in a game one time at this point last season. And they've almost doubled the amount of goals conceded after the same amount of games this season. So I think they still have scored quite a lot. Obviously, it's fallen off a bit recently, but I can't see Mane, Salah, Firmino being out of form for that much longer. So
100%.
I think I'd still put their chances really high because at the moment they're off form and they're still within a shout. So I'd say I'd if I was to give them a rating out of 10, I'd probably give them, at the moment with the way it's going, maybe like a 7 or an 8. I think the 7 will be harsh, but just because everyone else is doing so well, and they're gonna have to pick it up soon. Like if they don't want to sort of become part of the chasing pack rather than the people being chased. So I don't know if you'd agree with a 7 or an 8, or whether you'd want to.
I would 100% agree. I think all credit to Fabinho for the job that he's actually done since the centre backs have been injured. I think he's been near one of the best centre backs in the Premier League this season. I think he deserves so much credit for what he's done for Liverpool to help him out this season. Obviously, I think that's what people are not understanding as well. Obviously, where he's dropped back, you're missing that CDM who controls the play, who picks it up. Okay, Wijnaldum's a good player, but he's more of a CM. And then you've got Henderson, unfortunately, now dropping back. He's the leader of the pitch, so you need him in the middle of the pitch. And then with Van Dijk as well, he normally puts the ball over the top for the wingers to push forwards, and then that's where Firmino would drop into a false nine, and that's where he's more proactive in that false nine position. At the moment, he's having to be that player to go running into the box and try and get them open goals or them 6-yard goals, and he can't do that. And tap-ins, he's not. For me, he's not that sort of striker, and I think that's what's he's struggling with this season. And I think that's what's struggling with the wingers with Mane and Salah. They're not having that service. Is where you got Salah and you got Trent and Robertson running up and down the wings. It's sort of a bit confusing. And what are Mane and Salah doing? Because that's normally what they'll do. They'll run down the line and they'll have Firmino dropping back to put the ball into, or they'll be able to run behind the defence, and they haven't got that ball going through at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I do think that with sort of Thiago starting to play a bit more and hopefully Jota for them coming back from injury. I don't know how long he's out for. They haven't said, but I assume it won't be the whole season. Then you'd think they'd have enough. But I think moving on to the next team, who sort of I think has surprised everyone purely based on the hype they don't get really is Leicester City, who are obviously currently preoccupying one of the top four spaces, or the last team out of the ones we've spoken about so far.
Yeah,
I
the
think,
third.
yeah, so uh, they're having a ridiculously good season. And again, sort of Vardy's defying his age and 11 goals and 5 assists, I think he's got, which is like a ridiculous output for 33, 34-year-old. But I mean, like they're really fun to watch. All their players seem to sort of perform at their top level of output. And even with injuries, they've still managed to keep sort of ticking the wins each week. So, have you got anything sort of else to add on Leicester? I mean, I think they're having a great season.
100%. I think they're sort of in a way following from the start of the season they had last season. Obviously, I understand they dropped off, but I think what they've done good in the business of in January or the summer, they brought some other players in, and also they started giving some youngsters a bit of experience as well. Obviously, they brought in that Castagna. It was a good signing. Obviously, indeed, he's come back. Tillemans has been loyal and such a good player since he signed for 45 million. A record. I think it was the record signing. And obviously, Maddison had that injury at the start. It was good to see him back and back fully fit, and he's actually playing really well. He's such a big player in that Leicester team. And you can even potentially say he could be a starting player in the England squad. So it's just definitely a bright future for these Leicester players. But look at their defence. I know you said about injuries. So obviously, Söyüncü had a big injury. But you've got Johnny Evans. What a key player he's been. Fofana, he's come in and been fantastic. You got James Justin, another good fullback. I think behind him is it Luke Thomas?
Yeah.
Looks like a good young fullback as well when he plays in the cup, or I think he's played in a few Premier League games. He looks a good prospect. Brighton, you just know he's a trustworthy player and he's always going to give his 100% no matter what. Brendan Rodgers can trust him, and that's what sort of players you need in the squad. He might not be the most technical or the best player, but he'll give you 100% every single game. Going back to Liverpool, you've got James Milner. He's exactly the same. He'll give 100%, 110% every single game. You can just trust him if you put him out on the field.
I agree with that. I think Leicester are a weird one because I feel like similar to last season, they were second for so long and then they ended up coming fifth. I do always worry that there's like a point where they might sort of fall away towards the end because
definitely.
especially like if Vardy stops. I know he didn't score like on the weekend, for example, but there's always that worry that if he goes on a few game run, they might pick up a few sort of draws and defeats. So I'd still, the way they're playing at the moment, I think it's only fair to give them sort of a similar rating to Liverpool, a 7 or an 8. But I do think there's a little bit of that worry just based on last season and the fact that I think they only signed Timothy Castagna in the summer, so it's not like they've like got a few bigger additions. It's more just the same players from last season just stepping up a little bit. So
but they also had a few people come back at now, like just gone over the point you said about Jamie Vardy. It is worrying. If, for example, he got injured, I know obviously he's getting. You said he's 34, 30, 33, 34. If he potentially gets injured, would you say Inacho's good enough? For me, he's not.
No, I don't think so.
And they got Iosi Perez. He's a good player, but is he good enough?
No.
They need, and I think that's what Brendan Rodgers come out and said. They're looking into the future without Jamie Vardy, and I think that he's starting to realise that he's still got. I think he's still got 2-3 more years in him where he can be at a top level, and he's proven it this season. He was top goal scorer last season. He's doing unreal again this season. He's still running God knows how much each game, and but they do need to start looking into a future without Jamie Vardy, 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think um, we've done the sort of the top four as it stands at the moment. I mean, I think we've got two more sort of big like teams who I'd say are sort of well within their rights to consider themselves big contenders. Sort of moving on, and then we have a few sort of long shot candidates who we can sort of discuss, and then we sort of can bring together and see what we could probably agree on our final top four will end up being. I think the next team that will be important to go into is Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, uh, they're quite an odd one, I think, this season. I mean, if you look at the stats of Kane and Son, I think they're like the top two of the top like four performing players in the league this season. But then you look at a lot of their other players and they're um, especially sort of the ones who are in that sort of the attacking areas, their output is sort of like awful. And if you were to compare it to Son and Kane, and it does seem like almost every game Son's bailing them out or Kane's bailing them out, and they're always setting each other up. So I think um, just on the fact that I think Kane's such a good player, same with Son, but with Harry Kane especially, again, it's that thing of if he was to get injured, I think they'd almost have no chance of getting top four. But I think at the same time, he had a good enough rest over the summer and over sort of the COVID period that I think he'll probably be fine. But at the same time, I also think, do they have the quality to even sort of sustain a top four challenge over the likes of Man City, Liverpool, Leicester, Manchester United? And I'd probably go against them. I don't think they have that sort of next gear to go up. I think they're already playing at their sort of highest sort of level. I don't know what you think, but I just
Yeah,
don't think that they've got another gear, and I think that's what they would need if they want to push the other four the whole way.
I personally don't think it's another gear. I think it's just the Mourinho. I think it's just how Mourinho plays. I think you like it's just gonna be a point again. Harry Kane and Son are probably by far probably going to be the two best players in this Premier League at the current moment. I think they're just unreal. The partnership they have, the ability to be able to put each other, assist each other, score goals week in week out, is just unbelievable. And I think with Mourinho, I think he's given them the license to be able to do that in a way. I think where the other attacking players they haven't been able, like the looks of like likes of Lucas Moura, Bergwijn, I don't think they've been able to get that license or the ability to be able to let them run loose in a way where it's them two that he knows they've got the technical ability to be able to do it. So he's just gone, you two go and get me the goals, the other lot defend. And I heard an interesting point I listened to Talksport a few months back, and they were saying, I was talking to a Tottenham fan, and he was saying, do you think you're going to win the league? And he said, no. And the geezer on Talksport said, okay. So he goes, answer me this question. So with Poch, you was playing lovely football, and you won nothing. With Mourinho, you played dirty football, so it means boring football was just you score one goal, it's two goals, and then you put 11, 10 men behind the ball, and you just defend the whole game and hope that you don't concede, but you still don't win anything. What would you prefer? And I think I listened to that and I thought, wow, what would you prefer? If you know you're not going to win anything, wouldn't you rather just go out with a bit of pride and think, we played good football today? Because to me, I don't, even with Mourinho, I know he's a geezer and comes and wins trophies, but I still don't think with this Tottenham team, he'll win anything. He's got a lot of strength, definitely in midfield. I think he's improved with the Højbjerg. I think that's nearly one of the summer signs, sign of the seasons. I think he's been unreal. I've always said he was brilliant at Southampton. I would love him at my club. I think he's just a solid player. He can hold the ball, he can tackle, he can pass.
No, he's
Great
a
vision
great
on him.
player. Great
Yeah,
player.
and Ndombele's starting to prove of what he can do. I know he's a bit lazy, but he's starting to show the abilities of what he got. And with that goal he got against, who was it the other day? Is it Sheffield United? With
Yeah,
that
yeah,
lob,
Chef. Yeah,
unreal. I think it's nearly got to be one of the goals of the season. But they definitely have got the ability to get top four. To me, I just think the style of the way they're playing, not giving the license to their attacking players, I think it's going to cost them the top four this season. And that's my opinion.
yeah. I mean, I think Mourinho's sort of preferred tactic his whole career has been to whenever he's sort of been winning league titles, it's always been play defensive, play for sort of the draw or the scrapey win against the big teams. Like when he was Chelsea manager, it was always try and get two draws against Arsenal, two draws against Manchester United, and then beat all the other teams, and you should win the league. And that's how it worked. Whereas in the Premier League now, it's too competitive. There's like
100%.
eight plus top teams, and you don't get you can't take those liberties. You can't get a draw against in like 16 of your games. You have to be trying to go for those wins. And I mean, I think they have got a few wins this season, but at the same time, I think like they've they've really sort of rode their luck, and I do think that they'll struggle to get that top four. But I may be wrong. I mean, the other team who's sort of on that little fringe of the top four is Everton, who again sort of Carlo Ancelotti's sort of revitalised Everton, who have sort of sat being the biggest pretenders in the league for the last sort of 5 years, where they've gone absolutely nowhere, but they've spent more money than most of the other teams in the league. Um, I mean, I think there's been a few sort of major changes with them. I mean, obviously the biggest one is the fact that, well, I guess there's two sort of James Rodriguez coming in and sort of adding that sort of confidence to the rest of the team, but also sort of the serious improvement of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I mean, he's their top goal scorer on 11, but sort of the worrying thing with Everton is the fact that obviously he's slowed up a little bit recently, which hasn't necessarily made him drop down the table or anything, but because he's their top goal scorer of 11, but their second top goal scorer is actually Michael Keane on 3. And I think that sort of shows that they're a bit too over-reliant on him.
100%.
And also another sort of important stat is that 32% of all their goals this season have been from set pieces. And I think it's another one you can't really rely on. Obviously, players like James are putting in, and Digne are putting in like incredible crosses and balls, but you can't sort of expect to win every game from a set piece. And I think their sort of creativity from open players may be lacking a little bit. And I think sort of in the sort of big games, they might potentially struggle a little bit to sort of put on a consistent run of wins because they can't score as freely from open play, and they haven't really got a sort of secondary player who's chipping in with a lot of goals. And obviously, at the end of the day, Calvert-Lewin's a great player, but he's never scored sort of 15 plus goals in the league, I don't think, before. So you can't rely on him to score sort of 25 plus to carry you into those top four spaces, a bit like sort of what Van Persie done for Arsenal in the 2011-12 season. I mean, you've probably got a few faults on Everton. I mean, I don't think their chances are too great with the other teams they've got to compete against, but I don't know if you've got anything else to say on them.
100%. I also want to start by saying what a start of the season they had, though. It was unreal. And you can definitely see the impact in the way they played when James Rodriguez and Luca Digne both got injured. Like you said, obviously, the amount of goals they relied on through crosses or set pieces, and then deliveries have gone missing. And Calvert-Lewin's probably got to be one of the best aerial threats in the league, or one of the best striker aerial threats in the league. I think his heading ability is unreal. But yeah, like you said, it is very slim that I think they'll get top four. Obviously, they've got a big manager, they've got a few big players. I still think they're, like I said, with Man United, they're 1-2 players from winning the league. I think Everton are 2 or 3 players away from getting top four. I think they need definitely a winger, maybe another 2 wingers. I know Richarlison has got a lot of hype, but for me, I don't know.
Yeah,
He is a good player, but I don't think he's going to be the player to put him into the Champions League. I think they do need to get a winger. I think their midfield is unreal. I think Decore was a good signing. Allen was definitely a brilliant signing. James Rodriguez, another good signing. Obviously, you've got the likes of Andre Gomez. You've got Tom Davis. Tom Davis is a brilliant English prospect. Centre backs, Michael King, Holgate. Yerry Mina, I think, is a bit of a liability. I think he makes a lot of mistakes. But also Jordan Pickford, the amount of mistakes he's made recently. Well, and maybe at the start of the season, not so much now. But that, goalkeeping mistakes do cost points and they do cost games. And I
Yeah.
think
So I
it's hard
think
to, yeah,
I just think that, like you said, I think the fact that they haven't necessarily scored as much as they were at the start recently, and with sort of the fact that you never really know when the sort of ticking time bomb of Pickford is going to go off with his sort of goalkeeping errors. So I think if I was sort of to give them a rating, I'd probably put it around that sort of 4 or 5. And it's weird because they are actually really close. And if they win their next game, I think it put them sort of in there. But I just think that they're the sort of team that could easily not win for quite a few games just based on like 1 or 2 players sort of being injured or having an off week. And I just think that with sort of the fact that they've got to not only they've got to sort of get past one of sort of um, Leicester, United, City, or Liverpool, and then you still got sort of Tottenham lurking in there as well. Uh, I just think they'll be just a bit short. I reckon getting top 6 is probably quite a good. They'll be sort of quite a high probability, but top 4, I don't think they'll get.
yeah, they've definitely got. It, it's very likely they can get Europa League or European, Europa League football. But like I said, I don't think they'll get top 4 this season.
Cool. I think what we'll do now is from the next sort of few teams down. Not that they're necessarily to count them out or anything, because they're all, again, the fact that fourth place is currently on 34 points, which is Liverpool, and sort of Arsenal are 10th, and they're only 7 points behind. And even then, Aston Villa are 11th. But if they win their games in hand, then they go to only sort of 2 points behind fourth place. So, sort of to reel off
So tight.
to reel off the next few teams. I just want you to give me uh, a rating out of 10 for what you think their chances are of potentially sneaking into those top 4 places. So somehow, and I don't know how they've managed it, they're sneaking in at 7th place is West Ham United. So out of 10, what do you rate? What would you give their chances of sneaking into those Champions League places?
They've had a fantastic season. You can't praise them anymore for what they're doing at the moment. Definitely, David Moyes has got the whole team playing well. Antonio is obviously a big player now. He's back from injury, but for me, I can't see him getting anything higher than 6th place this season. So I'm going to go for a 2 or 3.
That's fair enough. I mean, I'd agree with you. I think it's mental because there's only 6 points behind Leicester on the same games played, but at the same time, I don't know with them. I just feel like there's not really enough star power to sort of push them through in any. Because obviously, at the end of the day, they've got to get into that top bracket. They're going to need to beat the teams above them, and
100%.
although they have done that, I think they beat Leicester. I think they beat Everton. Not 100% sure, but like, is it likely in second sort of round of fixtures they're going to be going to Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, and going, yeah, we're here to take points? I don't think so.
Yeah,
So
they've
I'd
definitely got the
agree.
ability. They've
Oh
definitely
yeah,
got the ability, and they have got. Obviously, they made a good signing with Benarama. He's a fantastic signing. Obviously, Craig Dawson's a good player to bring in. I know he's old, but he gives an aerial threat with. At the moment, like I said, the people are rating Soucek as probably the best header in the Premier League at the moment. And he's up there. He's scoring goals
new
from.
Fellaini, yeah.
Yeah, he's unreal, and
But
they
yeah,
have got the
so
ability, but I just don't think they will.
down the next place. Somehow I don't know how they've got it, but obviously in the different ways to West Ham, we got Chelsea in 8th place. I mean, sort of like I don't even know what to say about them because they looked really good, and especially at the start of the season before the kickoff had even happened, everyone assumed they were going to be minimum sort of third, but they've been awful recently, and I still think there's a chance they could easily make a run because they're not that far behind. But do I see that happening? No. So I'd almost be sort of think it'd be unfair to put them any higher than West Ham, and I'd probably give them a 2 or a 3. I don't know what you'd say.
I don't know, I think that's harsh personally. I think with the technical ability and the players and the names they've got in their squads, I know they're not playing well and they haven't been playing well for a few amount of weeks now, but you can't rule out the likes of Kante, Thiago Silva. I know Kai Havertz hasn't really. He's still so young. He hasn't proven himself in the Premier League, but he's still a big name. Timo Werner, when he's on his day, I know he's been awful recently. He looks like he's got triangle boots and he looks like he's wearing Colton Cold boots. He can't score at all. But if he gets a bit of confidence and he starts scoring, he's so dangerous up the top. Tammy Abraham is a hard one. He's good at holding the ball up, but I don't think he'll bang you 30 goals a season. I don't understand why they don't play Giroud as much as they do. The geezer's been underrated, and I think he's proved it season. Even when he was at Arsenal, he done it in every season. He scored goals, and he does it for France as well. So he should get more credit, and he does. But they've got a lot of good players, and I think is Frank the man to do that? I don't think he's the man. I think he was rushed into the job.
So do you think
he
that
didn't
means
really?
that? Oh, Karen, finish.
I was gonna say yeah. Sorry, I was gonna say he didn't really prove it at Derby. I know he got them to the playoff final, but he didn't. It's not like they won it. So what? It's like what Steven Gerrard said. He said he needs to earn the right to be able to come to a big club and manage them. So I don't think Frank earned that. I think Chelsea were just they didn't have a manager, or they're so inconsistent. The managers, they literally if they don't do well for a couple of months, then they get rid of them. So it's quite surprising that they've still got Frank there at the moment. I've overheard that apparently they're looking to bring in Avram Grant to give him help. So if they do that, it'll be interesting. But personally, I would rank them maybe at 4 or 5 because
No,
I
that's fair
think
enough.
with the ability they have in their team, and if they do, if somehow they flick a switch and they all start playing, I think they could
Yeah, I
definitely
guess.
beat the likes of United, City, and Liverpool. I won't say beat actually. I think they can give them a good game, and I think they potentially could come out of a point or maybe even a win. And they could beat Spurs and they could beat the few teams above them. So yeah, I think it'd be a bit harsh to give them a 2 or 3.
I guess it's just that thing, like you said. Maybe they have another level that maybe like a West Ham don't have.
Yeah, definitely.
I think sort of for the last few teams that potentially have a chance, just give a quick rating out of 10 for what you think, what you think their chances are. So 9th Southampton.
1 or 2.
No, that's fair enough. Arsenal.
10. I'm only in my dreams. It'll be top 10. For me, Arsenal. It's gonna have to be the same as West Ham. They haven't given the gear, so I'm gonna say 2 or 3.
No, that's fair enough. And then sort of lastly, sort of the weird one because they're down in 11th, but obviously they shouldn't be. Where it's Aston Villa.
Like I said, if they win the 2 games, they go 2 points. So, and they are looking good. I just don't think they'll last the whole season. So I think I'm just gonna have to go with maybe 3 or 4.
No, I think that's fair enough. I mean, I think they have got some really good players, but I don't think, like you said, especially after being they should have been relegated last season. I can't see them going the whole season without falling a little
Yeah,
bit.
I think they'll do something like what like a Sheffield United done last season, or where okay, not newly promoted. I think they've got obviously this is the second season since they've been promoted, but they've definitely invested well. Obviously with Traore, with Ollie Watkins, Ross Barkley. Obviously the 2 centre backs, Konza and Mings, are playing really well. Obviously they're probably arguably definitely a goalkeeper in the top 10 with Martinez. That's probably one that, like I said, again, a sign of the season. He's been unreal, and it was such a shame for Arsenal to let him go. But they've definitely got good investment, but I still don't think they'll get top 4.
Cool. So that we've gone through all the teams. We've sort of given our opinions on them individually. I mean, the top 4 currently is Manchester United, Manchester City, Leicester City, and Liverpool. We won't do an order just because we can do a separate video on who we think's going to win the title. But do you think any of the teams who aren't currently in the top four sneak into there, or if you were to sort of give your sort of put it on the line and say who your top four is going to be, who would you put forward as your top four?
My top four are four right now. Currently, with United, City, Leicester, and Liverpool. Not in that order. Like I said, we're not going to do orders, so we'll just say the names, and that'll be my top four this season, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'd agree. I think I'd be very shocked if it isn't those four. However, if there had to be any sort of variation, it would be potentially, like you said earlier, if Chelsea somehow flick a magic switch and maybe Leicester drop off a little bit, but otherwise, I'll be pretty certain to say that the four that are in there now are going to be the four that are going to stay there.
Yeah, for me, the only team that won't be in there, if for any of some weird reason, would be Leicester.
Yeah.
I think obviously Liverpool, United, and City. I think they'll definitely be in top four. But I think the only one that's a bit iffy would be Leicester, but I can't see the reason why they won't be.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, so anyway, we've both given our sort of top four predictions, and we've gone through the sort of and ranked the chances of all the teams in the top 11, which is quite nice to hear because it's not just like a done thing after half the season. But anyway, thank you for watching our video, and obviously thank you to Sam for coming and discussing it with me. So if you are watching, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video. And that's all from us, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Bye.